LTX2023 was a whirlwind event with thousands of attendees, dozens of content creators, vendor booths, games, and something fun and exciting around every corner. Within the larger LTX event was Whale LAN, sponsored by Ubiquiti, where hundreds of folks brought in their gaming systems for 2 days of non-stop fun. Linus Media Group is known for OVERKILL, and the temporary network that they set up for Whale LAN is no exception. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how that network was set up, and later I'm going to be speaking with Jake Tivy to ask some of the burning questions, like what level of effort was involved in setting up and breaking down that network? What would you do differently for Whale LAN 2024? And how is Linus so adept at coming up with sponsor segues? Like this one, to our sponsor, Rogue Support. You can make network and wireless issues a thing of the past with Rogue Support, brought to you by Crosstalk Solutions. Rogue Support offers expert network and wireless assistance for your home or small business, regardless of the type of equipment that you have or the problems that you're facing. Whether you need help with a best practice network design, troubleshooting a pesky issue, securing your network against intruders, or just trying to fine-tune your Wi-Fi for perfect coverage, Rogue Support is your answer. We'll work on your schedule and you pay nothing until your ticket has been resolved. And for a limited time only, we're offering 25% off your first Rogue Support engagement when you use coupon code ROGUE at checkout. Find us on the web at rogue.support to get started today. Your network will thank you. Before we dive into this video, I do want to make clear that both LTX and my interview with Jake Tivy took place prior to the current Gamers Nexus Linus Tech Tips drama that has received a massive amount of social media attention over the past week. Now, I'm not going to be commenting on any of that drama in this video. Other YouTubers, including my new buddy Chris Titus, have done a great job of summarizing the controversy, but I will say this. I do sincerely hope that the criticisms laid out by Gamers Nexus, as well as the tech community as a whole, are responded to and addressed with professionalism by Linus and his team, and hopefully they're going to come out better on the other side. So with that said, let's now dig into the networking. Like most networks, Whale LAN has to start with an internet connection. In this case, LMG was given a 5 gigabit fiber connection at the convention center. They terminated that fiber directly into a 1U Supermicro server with a 4-port 10 gigabit network card. The Supermicro server was running OpenSense, which tackled all of their firewall needs without breaking a sweat. The OpenSense server had a 10 gig DAC connection over to a beast of a core switch, the MikroTik Cloud Core Router 2216. Or if you speak MikroTik model numbers, it's the CCR2216-1G-12XS-2XQ. Whew! So, the 2216 is absolutely amazing, right? A 16-core CPU with an additional Marvell Prestera Aldrin 2 switch chip specifically used for Layer 3 hardware offloading. For ports, the Cloud Core Router 2216 has two 100 gigabit QSFP28 cages and 12 25 gigabit SFP28 cages, which is absolutely insane. Let's talk about the 100 gigabit ports first. Those two ports were link aggregated to 200 gigabits per second and then connected to a LAN cache server, which itself was truly impressive. The LAN cache server chassis was a Gigabyte R283-Z92 powered by dual 32-core AMD Genoa CPUs, 1.5 terabytes of DDR5 RAM, and 6 15 terabyte Kioxia CM7 Gen 5 NVMe drives. Those drives were configured in LVM Stripe with XFS for 84 terabytes of total storage. And if you didn't understand a word I just said, just know that this server is the type of thing that would make even seasoned network admins do a double take. It's a sick server in the best possible way. Installed onto this beast of a server is LAN Cache, which is a simple caching server specifically designed for LAN parties, meaning that if any of the attendees needed to download a new game, they can download it locally on the LAN rather than using up the internet bandwidth at the convention center. LAN Cache has prefill scripts for pulling in software from Steam, Battle.net, or Epic. According to Jake at LTT, they preloaded 32 terabytes worth of software onto the LAN Cache server, of which about 25% of that was Windows updates. Now, over the course of the 2-day event, an additional 1.5 terabytes of software was downloaded and then added to the cache. The LAN Cache server made a huge impact on the Whale LAN bandwidth. Out of their 5 gigabit connection, they saw peaks of just over 2 gigabits, and those were spikes from people who were running speed tests. So how do you then distribute files and internet out to all of those attendees? Well, that was all UniFi, who was the sponsor of the event. They started from the MikroTik core and branched out into 2 separate UniFi Switch Pro aggregations. They had one for each set of tables on either side of the event. The connection from the MikroTik to each Switch Pro aggregation was 100 gigabits, and they achieved this by link aggregating 4 of the 25 gig ports. The Switch Pro aggregation that was closest to the core was connected with some DAC cables, and the satellite location was connected with 4 fiber cables, but like not just any fiber cables. We're talking about indoor single mode mini armored plenum fiber that was supplied to the event by infinitecables.com. And you might be saying, what? Like mini armored indoor fiber? What is that? And essentially it's exactly what it sounds like. They take 2 strands of fiber and then they wrap them in a flexible metal casing, which is then buffered with some additional material before being wrapped in plastic. The fiber inside is very well protected against rodents in the environment while still remaining nice and flexible. Super, super amazing cable. On the near side, the Switch Pro aggregation connects out to an Enterprise 48 PoE switch with quad 10 gigabit DAC cables link aggregated for 40 gigabits of total throughput. The Enterprise 48 PoE was used to supply LAN connectivity to all of the admins that were running the event. It also had a UNVR that had like 4 or 5 cameras, as well as a U6 enterprise access point, and a CloudKey Gen 2 Plus was the UniFi network controller. The Switch Pro aggregations on both sides of the event also had a dual link aggregated 10 gig Cat6 links out to every single table for the attendees. Now these gaming tables had either a UniFi Enterprise 48 PoE switch or they had the UniFi Switch XG24. And what that means is that every single attendee at Whale LAN had at least one 2.5 gigabit port, and some of the tables were able to provide 10 gigabit Ethernet for everyone sitting at that table. Next to the main network stack was a Fractal Design Pop Air, and this little server was also pretty beefy with an AMD 7543P EPYC CPU, 256 gigs of DDR4, and 4 7 terabyte Kioxia CD6 Gen 4 NVMe drives. It was used for a bunch of different virtual machines, including a monitoring and alerting system using Grafana with Discord and SMS notifications, as well as a TrueNAS server that was used for recordings that they made from the Whale LAN stage. If this whole network setup is making you drool, you are not alone. It was absolutely super impressive. So let's now hear from the man himself, Jake Tivy from LTT, who was instrumental in putting this whole thing together. All right, so Jake, back from LTX. It was an absolute whirlwind of a weekend. Are you back to normal life now at this point?
Oh yeah, whirlwind is a statement, I would say, but yeah, everything is smoothed out a little bit. I feel like I need a vacation and then probably a vacation from that vacation, and I'll be like really 100% again. But yeah, it will.
Now, you know, just remembering back to that weekend, you were being pulled in like 6,000 different directions at all times, and any times you would stop, like lines would form from people wanting to talk to you. So I know that you weren't doing all of the work at the Whale LAN. How big was the team that you had there administering the thing?
Oh man, I mean, that's hard to put an exact number on. I guess me and one of the guys from our team, who I can't say his name because he's still on probation, kind of did all of the prep and the setup. And then we also have Kevin, who does a lot of volunteering for LANFest. I'm sure you're familiar with LANFest. They do lots of charity LAN parties, which is awesome. I'm actually going to go to LANFest Colorado to see Kevin. That'll be awesome. We kind of contracted him to help out with a lot of the, I don't know, just the things I didn't have time for, like setting up game servers and, you know, at the event, having somebody there when me or unnamed person or other, I guess Dan. I can say Dan. Everyone knows Dan the WAN man. Needed to go somewhere else. We had somebody to stay there and kind of keep an eye on things. But generally, I mean, if you think about who is actually there and it's like their job to be managing things, I guess it's just two, Kevin and the guy that I can't name. And I was there, but mostly once the setup was done, I was mostly signing things, to be honest. So
yeah,
small team, all things considered.
Now, you guys had both like Discord as well as SMS notifications for the setup. Did you guys run into problems? Like, were there people that needed or had issues or needed things during the event? How smooth was it?
Honestly, the networking side of things, astonishingly, basically no problems.
Great.
All of the physical wired connections, I mean, in the setup, we had a lot of tinkering things. Like there was some, we're using RJ45 to SFP transceivers. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. There were some weird things with like, that one doesn't work, and then we swap to a different one, and that magically works, or it works fine on this cable, but not the other one. When you get into the longer distances, that sort of gear, you should just use fiber, and that's what we're going to do next year. But other than that, I mean, once everything was set up and people rolled in, usually at a LAN party, things break in the first 15, 30, 60 minutes.
Right.
Nothing really broke.
Well, good. Now,
yeah.
So to me, and looking over the whole network, like one of the most impressive pieces of gear was that LAN cache server, right? And you had two 100 gig DAC connections plugged into that thing for 200 gigs total link aggregated, right?
Oh, yeah.
How did you speed test that thing? How did you test it out? You almost need like a whole comparable server just to speed test it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of ways you can do that. There's this really awesome project called LAN Cache Prefill. I think there's LAN Cache Prefill for Steam, Battle.net, and Epic Games. So you can use that locally. Obviously, that's not going to give you the full picture. It's not going to show you any sort of losses you have at a network level or on the NIC itself or the translation between that. But on the local machine, just running that, you could see that the cache could pull way over 200 gigs.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in 300-400 gigs on the same system from the cache, which is kind of ridiculous. And then in terms of testing it separately, you can use the same software. They even have like a benchmark mode, which is super awesome, and you can tell it how many concurrent connections you want to make and things like that. We use actually the Proxmox machine, which on the network chart you have there was two 25 gig links, but that's actually also a 2x100 ConnectX-6 card, just with QSFP to SFP adapters, just because we ran out of 100 gig ports. Using that with two VMs running in Proxmox, each with like one of the NICs assigned, because with LACP obviously you kind of run into, well, one client can't really traverse both of those links. With those two clients, I was also able to test out at 200 gig. And then we even added another server and we got 300 gig, which is crazy. A lot of testing. I mean, I originally wanted to use ZFS, and that didn't really pan out. It seemed like we were kind of running into a limitation around 80 gig. I mean, LAN caching is a super random workload. It might be sequential in the way that it downloads, but then once you're serving that to clients, it's all over the place, right? But yeah, I mean, crazy speeds, and I think it probably peaked out at like 10 gig, 15 gig.
Wow.
It was more just like, I have this crazy server. I mean,
yeah, I mean, like
well,
the drives were super impressive. Like everything was impressive about it. And like you're pulling 10 or 15 gig out of that server. And you said the max that you hit on the actual internet fiber connection was like just over 2 gigabits?
Yeah, 2.1 gig, and that was actually speed test traffic. So what you'll see at LAN parties frequently is at the start of the event, everyone is saying, "Now, let's see how fast the internet is."
Right, run that speed test.
You can watch it, and I mean, we're using OpenSense, so you can watch it. It'll be like, ooh, 1 gig on the down, 1 gig on the up. And then I think at one point there was, there's two going at the same time.
Right. Now, is that like, I mean, I would attribute the sort of like the lack of internet usage to that LAN cache, because, I mean, that must have been like, yeah.
I mean, we've never tried to pre-fill that much before. Fortunately, one of the people who bought a Whale ticket, Hobbs, has like 4,500 games on Steam.
Oh, man.
It's like, can I borrow your Steam account? And he was a little like, I don't know. The Steam account's worth a lot of money. I was like, you can trust me. I swear I will not do anything.
That's right.
And his account alone is like 15 terabytes. And then one of our staff happens to have an Epic Games account where he's just claimed every single free game. So he's got like 300 games on Epic. So we cached all of those. Windows Update is surprisingly like 25% of the traffic, which I would never have thought.
And like who's going to a LAN event and they haven't updated Windows, or they just need to update Windows?
I thought that initially, but what I realized is a lot of people, I'll bring my laptop that I use every once in a while, right?
And it hasn't been turned on in a month, and there's
and there's a lot of Windows updates, so it kind of makes sense.
Now, one of your techs told me the day, I guess the Sunday of the event, that you guys. That the event closed at 6 p.m. and they needed you guys out of there by midnight?
Oh, yeah.
Did that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I mean, what was that like?
So, it actually is worse than that sounds, because the LAN party was positioned right in front of the main loading door.
Oh, wow.
Which meant the LAN had to get torn down. Otherwise, all the other people could not take their stuff out. No forklifts, nothing. So we actually had to tear down the LAN at a A+ priority, and I think it only took us 2 hours from 6 p.m. when everyone was done and the internet was cut off to having all of the pallets loaded and wrapped.
Wow. Now, did you do a lot of wrapping up the Cat 6 real nicely, or was it
all of the cables were wrapped.
That's nice.
Peeled up all the tape. Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good system for all of the switches. We had like Rubbermaid laid out for them, so we just dropped. Luckily, those Ubiquity switches fit beautifully right into Rubbermaids. They're like the perfect height.
Well, okay, so last question. Now, you had already, you had mentioned that you would have rerun fiber out to the tables. Is there anything else you would have done differently besides that?
Oh, man, done differently. I mean, I think that's the biggest one. I originally was kind of like, I don't really want to do fiber because I'm worried if we have volunteers helping set up or tear down that they're going to screw stuff up.
Right.
Which, to be fair, is probably a valid concern. But I don't know. After having to deal with Cat 6 RJ45 to SFP transceivers, I want to do fiber next year for sure. And Kevin, like I said, one of the guys that helped out, he does LANFest Colorado, and they've been using the same fiber to all the tables for like 5 or 6 years now.
Right.
And theirs isn't even armored. I mean, that armored fiber is super cool, and that's what I would use. But I mean, they've just been using normal stuff and had no problems.
Very cool. All right. Well, listen, thanks again, and I had a great time, and I'm definitely looking forward to next year. Yeah, me too. Hopefully I can actually play some games next year. Well, I wouldn't put any money on that if I were a betting man. All right. Thanks, Jake. Yeah, no problem. So there you have it, an Overkill network from the kings of Overkill, and I'm very excited to see what improvements they make for LTX 2024. I hope to see you all there. For now, though, if you'd like to keep this party going, I have hand-selected a couple of videos on the right here for you to watch next. The top video is my overview of the PDX LAN network, and the bottom video is the story of how I recently broke my own network and I had to figure out how to fix it.